Alrighty, hey, welcome football fans. It's time for another edition of Football Talk. Of course, this is an Inside Sports production. I'm your host, Charles E. Smith Jr. We're already up on week 7. Everything is starting to shake out a little bit. So let's go ahead and get right into this. I don't do the show alone, of course. As I tell you, every week I only enlist the best talent to help me out on this show. So let me introduce my partner, none other than Chris Lardieri. Some of you are fortunate enough to follow him on Twitter at Chris L Sports. Read him online, chrislsports.blogspot.com. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, here is the man, Mr. Lardieri. What's happening?
Charles, thank you. Each week it gets better and better. I wish I could take your work with me at the day job and so you could give me my review. I appreciate it.
All right, so, hey, what's the latest in Lardieriville? What's going on, man?
We hit on this last week, so I won't beat the proverbial dead horse. The amount of injuries in the NFL is staggering. Just guys are dropping like flies, and ultimately I think the healthiest teams will be in the Super Bowl. But before we elaborate on that, another head-scratcher from Mr. Roger Kendall, Goodell, and crew with the word that they're looking to not only add a wild card team to each league, but now they're looking to push the season up a week to Labor Day, and they're looking to add Thursday night doubleheaders. Why, I don't know. As it is now, I don't think the Thursday night matchups are the greatest. I know the players don't like it. Jay Cutler came out and basically said for a Thursday night game you have to simplify the playbook, and guys aren't really in game shape. So yet again, they're just trying to squeeze every dollar out of this multi-billion-dollar empire. And I don't think it's a good idea. And ultimately, I think that this is just leading to the grand conclusion that Goodell has always wanted, the 18-game season, which I think is an even worse idea.
Yeah, that's true. And especially when you look at you touched on the injuries that we have. And, last week we were talking about it. I mean, Brian Hoyer out for the Cleveland Browns. E.J. Manuel, Julio Jones out for the year, and then this week Matt Schaub goes down, DeMarco Murray goes down for Dallas, DeMarcus Ware is down, James Jones and Randall Cobb are out for the Green Bay Packers, Jared Mayo out for the season for the New England Patriots, Aqib Talib for the Patriots, he may be out for a little bit, and Danny Amendola is out again for the Patriots. Although with Amendola's history, you can't really count him in any type of injury bug because he averages about 10 games a year. And no one knows when Gronk is going to be back either, Rob Gronkowski. But, the injuries are mounting. And I don't really keep track, but holy cow. This is incredible. And Steven Jackson, the running back that the Atlanta Falcons picked up to really get them over the hump, he played the first 2 games, and that's it. I think he's got he's less than 100 yards on the season. He's still not ready to come back. So it's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's bad when guys like Peyton Hillis and Matt Flynn are getting jobs again. So that should tell you about the magnitude of injuries in the NFL.
Yeah, it's true. And Matt Flynn, of course, cut by the Raiders and then picked up a week later by the Buffalo Bills. He'll be the starter. I think he'll be their 4th quarterback starting. I think Jeff Toole started, E.J. Manuel started, and then, what's his name, Thad Lewis started, and now Matt Flynn. 4 starters, and we're only in week 7.
Yeah, I mean, I know Jim Kelly's a little busy right now, so they may have to really go down the line to Frank Reich or Joe Ferguson if this gets worse.
All right, I love the random Joe Ferguson reference. So let's get right into the, of course, the big news of the week, and that is that Indianapolis Colts owner Jim Irsay dared to criticize Peyton Manning, who played all those seasons there in Indianapolis. Even though he only captured 1 ring, and I guess that was really the point of Irsay's criticism of Manning, but it comes down to, was his criticism really justifiable? And you look at Manning's numbers, of course, as Irsay said, the Star Wars numbers that he put up. But I just think, telling when you start putting it under the microscope, we have a case of maybe the emperor's new clothes when it comes to Peyton Manning and the supposed best quarterback of all time situation we got floating around out there.
Yeah, Irsay's one of these guys. I've thought this, and it's finally come to the surface. He likes to hear himself talk. And for all the commentary we hear in the league about how players shouldn't be tweeting, Irsay's one of the biggest offenders. He's always on Twitter. He's always saying things. And to say that about Peyton Manning, although, of course, he's backtracking now and is quotes were taken out of context by USA Today. Ultimately, it was a cheap shot. Peyton Manning's coming back home for the first time to Indy in a big game on Sunday night. And you know what? Yeah, Peyton Manning has one ring. But let's look at it this way. If Ben Roethlisberger hadn't made a shoestring tackle on a fumble, the Colts would have won that game in the playoffs back in '05. Is that Peyton Manning's fault? No. Is it Peyton Manning's fault the year the Indy defenses were weak and they couldn't stop Tom Brady and the Patriots? No. How about in the Super Bowl against the Saints? If Hank Baskett, who apparently has lived up to his potential, is now a reality TV star, if he could have fielded an onside kick, maybe the Colts win that Super Bowl. You never know. So really, and I think Bill Polian and Tony Dungy have come out and said things to the similar effect that not one man does a football team make. So I think he should just really be quiet at this point. It just comes across as very ungrateful, and if it wasn't for Peyton Manning, the Colts may have very well bolted Indianapolis like his dad did Baltimore 30 years ago. So without that, there's no Lucas Oil Stadium, there's no Super Bowl, and there's probably no Andrew Luck.
Yeah, that's true. And, and the thing is, when I look at Irsay, he's just one of those guys. He rambles a little bit. He just, when he starts talking, it's like the motor just gets in gear and it just keeps on spinning. But, I've said things about Peyton Manning over the years, and I think, though, that what Tony Dungy said in his defense of Peyton Manning is really interesting. His defense was he thought that Irsay was trying to pump this up to be a bigger game than it actually is so that Peyton wouldn't play well. Hidden in there is maybe the whole thing that Peyton doesn't play that well in big games. So, definitely you look at the career 9-11 playoff record, the fact that he and Marvin Harrison have 112 career TD passes between them as a tandem, but in the playoffs they only have 2 TDs career between Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison. So there's a drop-off there, undeniable. Yeah,
definitely. And, the other thing that stood out to me, and I was talking about this with a friend of mine, Mark, recently, Terry Bradshaw's got 4 Super Bowl rings. And is he considered one of the greatest quarterbacks ever? No. Same with Troy Aikman. Was he a great quarterback? Yes. Is he one of the all-time greats? No. Dan Marino, who while he was playing, the knock on him was he couldn't win a Super Bowl. It seems like that's all forgotten, and he will still go down as one of the greatest quarterbacks. He and Elway coming out of the same class, first ballot Hall of Famers, etc. And it's funny now in this next generation of football, Peyton Manning only has one and only made it to 2 Super Bowls, and he's a failure. So is this indicative of American sports, society, culture, what have you? I'm not sure, but I just find it ironic that Peyton finally won the big one, and people are questioning him. It's almost like the LeBron James syndrome, to use an NBA reference.
Well, I don't know. Peyton had an awful lot of regular season success. Averaging over 11 wins a season, really, in the heart of his career. And then it's just not. And what did Irsay say? They made the playoffs 11 times, and 7 times they're one and done. So, I think all this needs to be said has been out there. So we could spend the whole show on this topic, I'm sure. So let's just go ahead and move on.
Yeah.
All right. So you know what? Let's go to the NFC, and brewing in Philadelphia, Nick Foles, Michael Vick. Vick has been injured, out with the hammy. Nick Foles has had 2 starts, got a couple of wins, so it begs the question, is there a QB controversy brewing in Philly? Of course, Chip Kelly's in the safe zone right now because Michael Vick is still hurting. Michael Vick's not going to play this week. He says the hamstring is really sore. He can't, doesn't really get any explosiveness on it. So Chip Kelly's okay for a little while here, but maybe and maybe even the next week too, Vick might not be ready because his body is not that young anymore. But at some point, it's going to come to the forefront. Nick Foles or Michael Vick. Nick Foles obviously the future, but is it possibly the future is now? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think there's much of a controversy. I think Nick Foles should be the quarterback. You see how well he's played. Even last year, Andy Reid threw him in there. He took his lumps, but I think he's learned from it. And the numbers speak for themselves. I think he's been doing well. He hasn't faced the stiffest competition, the Giants and the Buccaneers, but let him play. See what you can get out of him. He clearly likes the system. He's a Pac-10 quarterback, and Chip Kelly likes him. And what's funny is everyone thinks that Chip Kelly needs a faster, scrambling quarterback, and that's not the case. He just needs a quarterback to make the throws and keep that offense moving. And I think Foles is the answer, because Eagles are having a nice season after a terrible 2012. And if Foles is indeed the answer, let's find out now. If not, maybe move on and draft a quarterback next year.
Yeah, I think so. And I would say, were I in the position of head coach, which I'm not, but I'd say at this point it's Nick Foles' job to lose. I mean, go ahead and see how he does. He's obviously got a pretty good test coming up this week when Dallas comes to town. So we'll see that being a big division game, see how he handles the pressure. I think this will be a good test for him coming up. But I like Nick Foles even when he was playing with the Arizona Wildcats.
Yeah, very underrated coming out of college. So I think he's going to do a good job in that system.
Yep. All right, and jumping back to the AFC, of course, Matt Schaub, QB of the Houston Texans, gets injured. Well, the bad news is he's injured. I guess the good news is the home fans were finally cheering him. Or that didn't come out quite right. Talk to me, man.
Yeah, I gotta laugh. Everyone gives Philadelphia a hard time for cheering back in the day when Michael Irvin was down on the ground. They thought he was paralyzed, and deservedly so. Philadelphia fans are rough, but Houston's had a PR nightmare lately, and this really just takes the cake. It was disgusting. Matt Schaub's not playing well, but you don't cheer someone when they're hurt, albeit it was his ankle. Still, you don't do that. I mean, you've got fans burning his jersey in effigy, someone accosting him in his gated community. Houston, you should be ashamed of yourself. Matt Schaub's not having a great year. Come on, this isn't a third world country, really. Let's grow up. Just very classless. I know a lot of other people in the media felt the same way, but you can silently think that to yourself, but don't do it on the field. Just really tacky.
Yeah, agreed. And Matt Schaub had thrown a pick six in 4 straight games. It's a tenuous situation. Even J.J. Watt is getting under his skin as far as the situation there. They're 2-4 right now, and it seems to be no end. So T.J. Yates obviously isn't the answer. So they're going to be going with, this week it'll be Case Keenum, the kid out of Abilene, Texas, played for Wiley High School, and then was a Houston Cougar for his playing career. Now he's going to be playing for Houston's pro team. So can you really make a case for Keenum? I guess that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, very good. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Is he a bona fide NFL quarterback, or is he the next David Klingler? We shall see.
Well, I think one thing is this. The position Houston's in is, Matt Schaub is done. He's out with an injury, at least for now. We know that T.J. Yates is not the answer. So, to me, this is a good opportunity for Keenum to at least solidify and show the rest of the league that he is at least a capable backup, even if he's not ready to start at this point. But that's going to be a tough game for him. I mean, his first game ever, and he's got to go into the loudest, most rowdy stadium in the entire league in Kansas City and face the 6-0 Kansas City Chiefs. So you talk about baptism by fire.
Yeah, really getting thrown to the wolves. And, this whole mess in Houston with the QB situation reminds me, once upon a time, they were one of the teams considering making a run at Peyton Manning when he was a free agent. They decided not to and go with Matt Schaub. Hindsight's 20/20, isn't it?
Yeah, sure enough is. Okay, and then, what about the Dallas Cowboys? When we talk about that injury bug, they lost, DeMarco Murray and DeMarcus Ware. I guess he's supposed to be out 3 to 4 weeks, but DeMarcus Ware is going to try to go this week in Philadelphia. So we'll see what happens with the Cowboys. And, of course, the Cowboys, they got back to 500, and you know what that means. Super
Division
Bowl talk.
champions.
The Super Bowl talk can start. Whenever the Cowboys are at 500, the Super Bowl talk starts.
In that pathetic division, it actually can.
All right, but I think they have a good shot at the division. Well, Eagles are 3-3 also. And what about your Giants? I mean, Giants and Jacksonville still the two remaining winless teams, both of them sitting at 0-6. Maybe one of them gets a win this week. I thought that Jacksonville, the way they played against Denver last week, now if Jacksonville prepared every week, I think they practiced extra hard this past week and they came out not wanting to get embarrassed by Denver and wound up playing a relatively decent game. So I think if that's the motivation there, maybe if they just, had a better attitude about it, they still wouldn't be a great team, but they wouldn't be just a laughing stock of the league either.
Yeah, I guess once you're a 27-plus point underdog, that inspires you, and it probably also doesn't help playing in that practically empty stadium down in Jacksonville too. That's really not going to get you too motivated, is it? But yeah, I mean, they've got, well, not to sound disingenuous, but they've got some young talent there. If they could get a quarterback and maybe a few more years of high draft picks, maybe they can reload. But like we said, Blaine Gabbert's not the answer, and Justin Blackman, if he keep his head on straight, might be a good NFL player.
Oh, and that reminds me, Jacksonville, I believe they lost both of their top receivers this past week also. So, yeah, tough times there in Jacksonville. Not that they were ever going to be a playoff team this season or even next. But what about the Giants, though? And we talk about injuries, it's hit them hard, too.
Yeah, I mean, going into the season, I thought they were a 500 team at best just because I thought the line was banged up, questions at running back, but they've gotten decimated since then. And, look, everyone has injuries. I understand it's tough, but you look at teams like the Jets and the Raiders, have they thrown in the towel? No. And I got to go back to something cornerback Terrell Thomas said, where he basically called out some of his teammates that they've quit on Tom Coughlin. And I think they have, and I don't, I know they hung in there against the Bears, and Eli's been getting a lot of heat in New York for throwing so many interceptions. Right. But, the ball is on Brandon Meyer's fingertips, like we said in the Super Bowl a few years about Wes Welker. You got to catch that ball.
Yeah.
At least make an effort to get it. You can't, and just plays like that are a microcosm of their season. Brandon Jacobs has a nice game running the ball, 100-plus yards, then he's hurt, and you got to go get a Peyton Hillis. So they better right the ship, or this thing could really snowball and get out of hand. That said, that would make me optimistic about the potential to get Jadeveon Clowney in the draft if this keeps up.
Jadeveon Clowney. Yeah, well, is Clowney even going to... And it's his work ethic is questionable. I mean, I know we talk pro football here, but talking about Clowney, I know about him there, and, what is the deal with him anyways? What is his work ethic?
Yeah, good question. I don't know. Maybe he was going out on the autograph circuit with Johnny Football.
And I like that they got Peyton Hillis. It shows that, they'll take big, slow black guys and big, slow white guys there in their offensive backfield, getting Peyton Hillis.
Yeah, as long as you're big and slow, we don't care what color or anything else you are. Just be big and slow.
Okay. So we're having a lot of fun here at Football Talk, of course, an Inside Sports production, but time to get on to the before we get on to the picks of the week, guys, any final wrap-ups there for Week 6?
I'm just absolutely amazed at how atrocious my picks were last week. I'll fess up to it. It seems like, to Pete Rozelle and his Any Given Sunday quote, parity's still alive and well in the NFL, save for the Giants and Jaguars. You look at a team like the Chargers getting embarrassed by Oakland, and then the next week absolutely stunning the Colts at home. You look at the Patriots throwing a dud against the Bengals and coming back in a great come-from-behind win at the Saints. Like I mentioned on Twitter, I don't know how anyone can bet on the NFL. It's so up and down. It's so hard to predict from week to week, and that's why we watch.
That's true, and, sometimes, like I say, there's a reason why parody and parody sound so much alike,
Yeah, it's like we said, the injuries don't help either. That makes everything an even bigger crapshoot.
And right, and that was we need to talk about New England, who's I can't believe the way they just keep putting it together, and no matter what they throw. I thought for sure when Vince Wilfork was done, leaving that hole there in the middle, that would be their undoing. And they lose the game to Cincinnati, then they come back, they start winning again. An incredible finish to the game against New Orleans, even though I think Sean Payton may have gotten a little Schottenheimer-itis there at the end with his play calling.
Yeah. That's a good analogy. I hope people get that. But yeah, it's very, very un-Payton-like to take the proverbial foot off the gas. And as the Giants have seen in 2 Super Bowls, even though Brady didn't pull it out. You do not give him the ball. He will come back. He will haunt you. He's got that Montana-like quality about him, and Peyton learned the hard way.
Yeah, that's true. And, also, we got to talk about San Diego Chargers playing, and that was a near perfect game plan they had against the Indianapolis Colts, even though when they interviewed Phillip Rivers afterwards, he said it was not really their plan to necessarily keep Andrew Luck off the field the way they did. He said they just wanted to run a balanced attack, which I don't know. Maybe that's why you don't ask Rivers questions like that. But I thought it was the perfect plan they had. It seemed like we didn't see Andrew Luck but every 10 minutes in that game.
Yeah, it was very smart. When you think about it, they have to, because the Chargers are yet another team running out of wide receivers as the weeks go on. And let's face it, it's put up or shut up time for Ryan Matthews, and he had a nice game. Let him run the ball. So, yeah, we know Phillip Rivers tends to have some sort of Irsay-itis to him and spout things off. So I'm sure Mike McCoy gave him a good talking to.
All right, and congratulations to the Steelers. They finally get themselves a win against the Jets there. So let's go ahead and get into this week's picks. Last week was pretty much, would we say dismal or abysmal? Both of us went 2-4. We had actually picked the same games except for two, and the two that we differed on, we split. I had picked Baltimore over the Green Bay Packers, and then you had picked Washington over Dallas. Those were the games that we differed on. But I'm 15-21 on the season. Mr. Lardieri, you're now 20-16. I don't know. You started off well, man, but you're tailing off a little bit.
Yeah, I'm fading fast. I'm gonna, if I keep it up though, and I don't remember what division we're in, but if it is the NFC East, I still got a shot to win at 500.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? I thought Jim Schwartz, they had Jim Schwartz on, the coach of the Lions. He was on today, and he was talking about something interesting about all the injuries. And he said that, they're a little bit coy about the injuries because you think about it, it does give an advantage to the other team if they know exactly what is injured on what player. They can use that to their advantage. So while the NFL tries to accommodate the gambling public by putting out an injury report, but you think about that from a team and a player perspective, do you really want someone to know that it's your ankle, your knee, or your rib that's hurting, especially if it's ribs? You know you're going to get a few shots in there during those plays.
Yeah, that's a very good point by Schwartz. I'm surprised he actually said something so intellectually stimulating. But yeah, I mean, let's face it, the injury report's for the gamblers, and the alternative is to do like Belichick and put half your team on the injury report, I guess. But yeah, that doesn't make much sense. So I mean, what do you do at that point? Do you say, Calvin Johnson, questionable ingrown toenail? I mean, that's what it's ultimately going to come down to, right?
Right. Exactly. Well, Jim Schwartz, ever since he grew that goatee, he's turned into a different coach now, and he's got the Lions playing some really inspired ball. So maybe since now he looks a little bit more menacing. I think this is the new Schwartzy. The power of the Schwartz is coming through in Detroit.
You're going to make a Spaceball reference, aren't you?
Hey, All right, let's get on to the picks of the week this week. Let's see here, just a moment. Okay, so picks of the week. First game we're going to talk about Detroit, and I'll go ahead and pick first on the first game here. Cincinnati at Detroit. Cincinnati, everybody's wondering, is Cincinnati really, are they for real contenders, pretenders? What are they going to do? Is Andy Dalton really the long-term answer? Cincinnati going into Detroit, where Ndamukong Suh just got fined another $30,000 for a questionable hit on a quarterback, even though I saw the hit and I don't think he should have been fined for it. But Cincinnati going into Detroit, I think that, for my money, if I gambled on sports, which I don't, I'd go ahead and put it on Detroit here. I think Detroit is on a good roll. Cincinnati going into that hostile territory, the strong defense by the Detroit Lions, and then the way that the running game is going, Calvin Johnson, Megatron is playing well. I think they're in a good rhythm right now, the Detroit Lions, and I'm going to take the Lions to beat Cincinnati in this game.
I completely agree, and using my contrarian up-down theory, the Bengals pulled one out against the Bills last week. I think they're due for a letdown, especially on the road. And let's not forget the latest favorite target of one Matthew Stafford, Joe Fourier, and his
Yeah.
down dances. He did 3 of them against the Browns last week. Murray at the UCLA, another guy who's former Bruin who's doing well in the pros. So, yeah, even with or without Johnson, Stafford likes spreading the ball around, and as long as they've got Reggie Bush in the background, whether he runs the ball or as a decoy, you can never quite key on the pass. And I think the Lions win again at home this week, and they could be chugging to at least a wild card, if not a division title, at the rate they're playing. Knock on wood.
Yeah, that's true. Good to see them playing well, and let's go ahead and get over to the Miami Dolphins. So Buffalo is going into Miami. Miami, of course, wound up dropping a couple of games. They just had the bye week, coming off the bye. Hopefully Cameron Wake is healthy. And Buffalo, with their 4th starting quarterback of the year, already this year, Buffalo at Miami. How do you see this one?
I like the Dolphins, even though they've hit a little rough patch here with a week off and to get healthier. Ultimately, I think you put that front 7 against whatever Bills quarterback they throw out there. I'm going with the Dolphins. I think Tannehill gets back on track, and the Dolphins get back into the win column.
All right, and you know what? For all the reasons you said, I'm going to go with the Dolphins too. I think they're they're a healthier team, a more complete team, and I look for Mike Wallace to break out this week a little bit against that Buffalo defense. But I like Miami's front 7 as well.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's get to New England. New England Patriots, the injuries too numerous to really mention. New England Patriots going in to play the New York Jets. Big division rivalry game. I like the way the Patriots are playing, and it seems like there's nothing you can throw at them that they can't handle. Missing Jared Mayo, the linebacker, is out for the season. Aqib Talib is hurting. Amendola's hurting. But, Belichick just game plans well. This could be a game maybe like they played against Cincinnati, but I don't think so because Brady is getting on the same page with those no-name receivers. So I like New England in this game against the New York Jets.
I agree with you. First time around, they really struggled against the Jets, albeit in a pouring rainstorm. I don't think that'll happen a second time. Belichick won't let it happen. Even like you said, with the holes on defense, don't completely trust Geno Smith throwing the ball. He turns it over a few times, and whether they got backups in there or not, you get Brady the ball back, and I think it equals a Patriots victory.
Yeah, definitely. So then the next game we're going to get to another division rival, NFC East. Dallas Cowboys at the Philadelphia Eagles. Dallas, of course, they finally fought their way back to 3-3. The Eagles also are 3-3, so this will be a battle for the division lead here. DeMarco Murray is injured. He's going to be out. DeMarcus Ware is supposed to be out. He is making himself a game-time decision, but even if he's able to play, how much DeMarcus Ware are we really going to get from the Cowboys? Then, of course, Nick Foles starting in the big division game, starting at quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. What do you think about this game?
You know what? I'm going to go with Dallas, even despite all the injuries. I think they match up better with the Eagles. I think Romo will probably have a field day throwing on the Philly secondary. Game could very well be closer than we think, especially even if Ware plays and he's only at 50% and not completely able to push off, get a good pass rush going. I still like the rest of the Dallas D. And I think they keep the ball rolling, and heavens forbid, the Cowboys will have a winning record. One of these teams going to have a winning record. I say it's Dallas, and they'll take a commanding lead in the NFC East. And also, my love of the Dallas Cowboys, Charles. Want to send a shout-out to one of their biggest fans, my wife's uncle, Hector, fighting a tough battle right now. I know this will make him happy. I know their victory last Sunday night over the Redskins would make him happy. So what the heck, I'll pick Dallas, even though it goes against everything I believe in.
All right. Well, I look at this game, and I think that the Eagles, with Nick Foles getting more and more comfortable, and also the tempo they're able to play with, as far as when it comes to scoring points, I like Philadelphia's ability to do that better than Dallas, and especially with Murray not there to keep the defense honest, I think they can sag back in coverage a little bit and stop the big strikes downfield from Romo. So there's going to be an adjustment week for Dallas, adjusting to those injuries. I'm going to go ahead and go with Philadelphia, the home team, in this game.
Right. We digress. I mean, someone's got to win this game. I like it.
Okay, and then the next one, Baltimore at Pittsburgh. Baltimore Ravens, of course, being helter-skelter. Their running game, I don't know where it is exactly. I hope it's somewhere in that tri-state area, but it's definitely seems to have disappeared. And then Pittsburgh coming off their first win. Finally, they got a win this past week, but a big division rivalry again. This is pretty much the nastiest rivalry in the league at this point, even though it doesn't have the deep-rooted history of, say, Kansas City and Oakland. But Baltimore and Pittsburgh. I think this game is in Pittsburgh. Tough game to call, though. But I think Baltimore has a little too much here for Pittsburgh. I think even Baltimore 80% will be better than what Pittsburgh it has been, the way they've been playing this year. So I'm going to go ahead and take Baltimore in this game, big division rivalry against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Going back to my completely unscientific and trademark up-down theory of week to week, the Ravens threw a dud last week. I think they rebound this week. Flacco always seems to pull one out of the hat late against the Steelers. I could see that happening again. Maybe Ray Rice will be a Ray Rice sighting of some sort to get the ground game going, like you mentioned. And while the Steelers won, wasn't like they exactly lit up the Jets, still having trouble getting the ball into the end zone. Their defense played a lot better. Troy Polamalu was all over the field laying out receivers. So I think it'll be your prototypical tight, close Ravens-Steelers game, but I'll go with Baltimore.
Okay. It's going to be a bloodbath, though, no matter what.
Yep.
Okay, and last game we're going to pick here, the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota Vikings, of course, they just picked up Josh Freeman to play quarterback. Minnesota Vikings going into New York to play the Jets, or excuse me, not the Jets, the Giants. Giants, of course, winless. Minnesota having a lot of problems of their own. And Adrian Peterson, unfortunately, with the tragedy he just suffered with the death of his 2-year-old son. All of that weighing in, making a little sublime for the story here. But the Minnesota Vikings going into New York to play the the Giants. Do the Giants finally get numero uno? Do they get that first win against the Minnesota Vikings this week?
No, and here's why. You could say what you want about Josh Freeman, his ups and downs in Tampa, Greg Schiano dragging his name through the mud. He's still better than Matt Castle, and I'll definitely take him as an upgrade. What that means is the Giants won't be able to completely key on Adrian Peterson. And even if Peterson runs the ball 30 times, I don't see this Giants defense being able to stop him. I think that'll free up some passing lanes for Freeman. And at the way Eli's playing, and now with Peyton Hillis as your starting running back, that wouldn't scare me at all if I were the Vikings. So the streak continues, and the Vikings go into the Meadowlands and get a win.
Well, I guess I'd have to ask you this. Jared Allen, if I set the sacks at 2, would you take the over or the under?
You know what? I'm going to take the under because Eli will squirt away from a few of those potential sacks, and he'll throw an interception. So Allen won't get credit for the sack, but he'll do his job. He'll count as a quarterback pressure. Or I could see him just going and someone on the other side colliding with him and sacking Eli at the same time, and then I'll be stuck with 1.5. So I'll take the under and be a contrarian.
All right. Okay. And just for the record, I got to go ahead and go with Minnesota in this game. I don't think the Giants are going to go 0-16, but yeah, I think that Minnesota does have enough to beat the Giants this week. And barring an injury or something to Peterson, God forbid, I think that Minnesota goes ahead and wins this game.
I completely agree, and this is taking out my heart from the equation, just calling it like I see it.
Okay. All right, well, before we go ahead and get out of here, any final words for the viewing public out there, Mr. Lardieri?
Yeah, I just want to thank you for not throwing the Colts-Broncos game in there, because that was going to be tough for me to pick, although I will say, now that Jim Irsay's opened his big mouth, I think that's kind of like taking a broom handle to a hornet's nest, and I got to think that Peyton will be good and motivated to win in Indy on Sunday night. I don't know about you.
Well, the reason why I I didn't throw that game in there is because I knew that we both were going to pick Denver. That's
All
why.
right,
That's
good.
the only reason I didn't put it in there. But yeah,
Full
definitely a huge
disclosure, though,
contest.
if Irsay had not said a word, I was going to go with the Colts by using my trademarked and unscientific up-down theory, and that the Colts are due for a rebound, especially at home. But I can't do it now. Thanks, Jim.
Well, remember, Von Miller is coming back finally, too, for Denver. So he's going to be pretty hungry out there. So I think Denver has a lot of things working in their favor in that game.
Yeah, he's going to be hungry, but he won't have as much muscle mass, allegedly.
Oh, that was a beauty. That was a beauty. Took me a second to get that. All right, everybody. Remember, follow Chris on Twitter, and you can get many more, much more really highbrow comedy like that at Chris L Sports. Also, chrislsports.blogspot.com online. And then yours truly you can follow on Twitter at The Inside Sports. Remember, we're changing the world one sport at a time. The show is Football Talk. This is an Inside Sports production. I'm Charles E. Smith, Jr. Enjoy the week of football, and we will see everybody next week right here. Thanks for watching.